Ladies and gentlemen, our esteemed viewers, all the materials of the conference should and have to be shared on the social media. Share the broadcast, quote the speakers on your pages, and don't forget to have our account mentioned. And we go deeper into the space, into the world of technologies. Welcome to the panel discussion dedicated to oil and gas industry. And I invite the speakers to the stage. Innovations in the oil and gas industry, myths and reality.
Yeah, good. Okay.
Уважаемые коллеги, добрый день.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, good day. It's my pleasure to welcome you here to our today's meeting, Innovations in the Oil and Gas Industry, Myths and Reality.
сегодняшних участников.
I would like to introduce the participants of today's session.
Олег Валерьевич Жданеев, заместитель генерального
Олег
директора
Жданеев,
энергетического
Vice Director General
Алексей
of
Александрович Вашкевич, директор
Russian Energy Agency, Alexey Vashkevich, Director of Technological Development of Gazpromnet, Nils Dijksman, Vice President on Engineering Shell Exploration Production Services, Mustafa Al-Ali, CEO Saudi Arabia
Вячеслав Юрьевич
Innovation
заместитель генерального
in
директора
Russia,
ПАО
Vyacheslav
«Зарубежнефть»,
Singuin,
Петр Лукьянов, управляющий
Paul
партнер
Zarubezhneft,
фонда
and
TerraVC.
Petr Lukyaev, Terra VC.
Вести сессию буду я.
And the session will be
операционный
held by
директор
me,
кластера
Pertovsky Oleg,
энергетических технологий фонда Сколково.
Energy Efficient Technologies of Skolkovo
Выбрали
Foundation.
эту тему. Вообще традиционно,
Why this topic?
многие считают, что
Traditionally, people believe that oil and gas
не
industry
меняется годами.
is not changing at all.
Стандартная
This is
традиционная
something
отрасль,
constant, rather traditional.
технологии, которые давно
The
разработаны,
technologies
на самом
have
деле
already been developed and
это
nothing is changing, but this is not true.
не все знают, что нефтегазовая
Few people
отрасль
know that
является
oil
одной
and
из
gas
самых
industry is one of the most innovational fields,
высокотехнологичных отраслей.
and I should mention that it's a very high-end industry. What is important is that demand for new technologies is growing year by year. We can see that the deposits are running out, and the companies are digging deeper,
Добывать,
they are
нефть с
digging
более
shells,
сложными
they are
характеристиками,
extracting
вязкую
oil
нефть, нефть
with
из
more
сложных
and
пород.
more complex
Для этого
characteristics
требуется, всё
from
новые
more and more
технологии,
complex
чтобы
sources,
работать с
and
новыми
new
запасами,
technologies are
вводить
required
новые
for that,
регионы.
because new technologies,
Без
new
этого
regions have to be
добыча
developed,
в таких
and
условиях не была бы экономически оправданной.
extraction wouldn't be viable without it. And of course, industries requires new equipment, new materials, new technologies, and new approaches to organizing the labor, new ways of storing information, and new ways of decision-making, and of course, new speed of decision-making. And the industry is facing the requirement to increase its efficiency on and on, because the resource base is going to decline even more. The competitiveness between the companies is going to grow. And who is going to become the leader from the point of view of implementing the new technologies is a very relevant question. In our cluster of energy efficient technologies, Skolkovo has more than 280 companies which are developing technologies which can be used in oil and gas industry directly or indirectly. The technology is for various tasks: exploration, digging, extracting, processing, chemistry, and so on. Some of the companies are known in the world: Workflow Dynamics, for example, with the T-Navigator product, geonavigational technologies with GeoNav complex, which helps to construct the oil wells in the best possible way in order to extract maximum hydrogen, various market technologies, and so on and so forth. These are the companies which are working all across the world and in Russia as well. But we would like to increase the speed of implementing these technologies because the demand is obvious. However, sometimes the technologies are not implemented as fast as we would like them to be implemented. And we are going to discuss how these technologies are implemented in each company, how the choice and selection of the technologies is being done, how they are piloted and scaled up. I suggest we ask our speakers to answer these questions. And my first question goes to Oleg Zhdanev. Mr. Zhdanev, what is your opinion? Are innovations relevant for Russian oil and gas industry? And can we accelerate the development of the technologies, or maybe localization of the most relevant technologies in the field? Okay, let me understand how it works actually. How do I switch it on? So I'm an engineer and it's not enough to switch on the mic. Oh, I just speak into it. Okay, that's simple. Yeah, if we're talking about innovations, nothing is simple. It's a very interesting question, dear colleagues, and if we are looking at it from various angles, definitely we will run out of time. Let's speak about challenges first of all. 2014, the challenge, if we're talking about the development of the technologies and the development of everything. So everything is based on the demand, and starting from 2014, the situation is becoming more complex. Due to the world crisis, the drivers of the innovations, the oil and service companies, have faced a very complicated situation, and they had to decrease their investment into development of the technological solutions. What has been faced here and now? They had to reorient themselves because they had to develop complicated innovational solutions aiming at creating new products. And they had to work with the digital solutions. They are much cheaper, of course, but also it allowed to create this illusion that the amount of innovations remains the same and not goes down. First of all, I'm trying to talk about challenges here and now. For us, not to have an illusional picture of how things are good, and we live in this wonderful world here and now, and tomorrow we'll have dozens and thousands of innovations. Honestly, we don't know whether it will be there or not, but we will discuss it here and now. And I would like to say a couple of words about the situation which Russian Federation has faced. In 2019, we had a survey on technologies. We have been preparing the energy strategy, and we created a list of 155 technologies which would be demanded until 2025. I'm pretty sure that the amount of people understand that the process, starting from the idea until the implementation of the idea, so this is going to take up to 10 years and even more actually sometimes. Most of the ideas are really long. We started discussing these things with the colleagues, which technologies should be most demanded. And within the survey, we asked people to say whether the technologies are a competitive advantage for Russian companies or not, and which Russian partners could work on creating high-tech systems, intellectual systems. And the situation was rather peculiar. 80% of technological companies, I'm talking about coal industry, electric energy and oil and gas, they didn't think that the technologies are one of their competitive advantages. 80% of the companies also said that they do not see the possibility to develop high-tech technologies with Russian partners. This is a challenge which we are facing here and now, and it has to be solved here and now. We are fighting it every day, because, as it was said today, indeed, the mineral base is becoming more complicated, and without attracting new solutions, without attracting new people who are going to treat the situation differently, to have a most efficient and effective extraction and development of oil wells. So we have 27% right now, and which is not that good and successful example if we compare ourselves to different countries. And also, we won't be able to support the level of extraction which we really need. And we are getting back to a very interesting situation. When we're talking about the innovation is tool. So why we do those innovations? In order for us to help our customer, and I'm talking about oil and gas and hydrocarbons. So we have to be able to provide our customers with the raw materials which is needed to perform various tasks. I'm talking about the processing into energy, chemistry, oil chemistry, and so on. Okay, so what is the innovations in the technologies? Just to say that technologies, that tech is a traditional thing, so we cannot say that it's traditional here and now, because we are preparing the frontal strategy here and now, and we can say that a whole range of projects has been prepared within the program called New Energy, and the main basis was created on the disrupt projects, so the ones which are going to change the face of the Russian energy and oil and fuel business. And here we can see the balance between the traditional energy resources and the new things. We're talking about reduction of carbon footprint, we're talking about the development of 4R technologies, reduce, reuse, recycle, remove. Of course, we're talking about the increase of security and safety. So we can talk about the security of the infrastructure, safety of the people, usage of the digital technologies, including those which are going to increase the safety and security, of course, decrease of the environmental influence, and over here we're talking about the whole complex of energy and fuel. I would also like to say that any innovations are supported by the Russian Federation. So we had more than 15,000 cases of oil spills, and this is a great demand, and this is a great challenge which is actually coming to us, and we have to face it. Just recently we had another spill. This is a field where innovations are needed yesterday and not tomorrow. Innovations in the field of climatology. So we're talking about looking for a balance point of using the carbon and hydrocarbon sources to create the turquoise hydrogen and blue hydrogen and so on. And technology is always on the verge of breakthrough. My daughter is 6.5 years, and I think that she can already go into technologies. And technologies is always going to be the frontier of technologies, frontier of innovations. And to tell you the truth, the amount of breakthroughs and interruptions from the point of view of materials and fundamental science is going to be huge and great at all costs and all the time. So to develop a very complicated source and deposit, so is going to be as complicated as launching a rocket which goes to Mars. So, and it's great that we have this wonderful session, we have this very interesting panel. I'm really curious of listening to you. Thank you very much for this chance. Thank you, Oleg. It was very inspiring and interesting speech. Right now, we would like to give floor to the companies. I would like to ask Mr. Vashkevich from Gazpromneft.
Oleg just said that many companies don't see new technologies being their main competitive advantage, but at the same time he stated that technologies have always been a very important component for fuel and energy sector. So Gazpromneft. So new technologies for you, can they play a role in your competitive positioning? And what tools the company has to look and implement new technologies, innovative technologies? Good afternoon, colleagues. Oleg, when he talked about this topic, he made an important disclaimer. You mentioned 2019, so that was 2 years ago. So if this issue had been asked in 2019, most likely the response would have been positive, but probably I would have been less certain. So that is to say that the dynamics and internal evolution that we have seen at Gazpromneft, but not only in our company, in most Russian companies, as a matter of fact, in terms of rethinking their role in innovations, it's colossal. For a long time, we became a smart buyer when being an operator in oil and gas sector. We were doing geological surveys, transport, finding best solutions in the market for those challenges. We were like an integrator for those comprehensive projects. So we became good at that, methodologically, operationally, in terms of competencies, and our universities trained our people to be smart customers. But when we face this challenge that solutions in the market do not provide value for us, for the industry, that's one thing, but challenges become more and more complicated. So that was the trigger for the companies to start transforming and move towards this new model. 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, we would have major oil and gas service companies here because they were the bridge between the operator and smaller startups and solution providers, software solutions or whatever. So, but here we have a different panel, mostly people representing oil and gas companies. So this transformation is taking place here and now. I don't know if you have a sense for it. Maybe you're representing a different kind of player, but at Gazprom Neft over the last few years, we revolutionized this thinking, and we really upgrade our processes. We create new processes, new models of decision-making. We create new tools, venture investment funds, and we are the key investor in them. We create solutions that we have announced today. Gazprom Neft launches its accelerator. And just a few slides on this topic, just without spending so much time on this, but here's what I wanted to highlight. This evolution that I mentioned, where the company is going, it includes several mandatory elements of success. And we clearly made this decision that the model for Gazprom Neft to develop, it's a partnership model at all stages. So from solution development to all the way to their commercialization. So we develop basic partnerships, and those partnerships are the foundation today. So the principle of openness in innovations is at the foundation for those partnerships. So we actively cooperate not only with our partners, oil and gas companies, but we actively developed a model of cooperating with our educational institutions. We work with the service sector, and most importantly, we actively work with the government. I can tell you that key technological projects in our company, in one way or the other, have government involved. So shale, like Bazhenova, Sweets, so where Khanty-Nenets administration is very much involved as the government of that region, and Paleozoic and Tomsk region, where challenges are very different. It's not so much about recovering oil from low porosity collectors. It's a different challenge. It's finding the oil. So Paleozoic is about finding the oil. All our methods, what things that have been developed over half a century, all the tools provide a chance of only 20%. So we need to drill 5 wells, and maybe one of them will be successful. So this business model is hard to implement because your risks are too high. So the objective for that ecosystem is to increase those chances up to 60%, and everybody's involved in that project, from the region that co-finances R&D, university environment, innovation environment, developers, producers of equipment. So it's a unique project from the perspective of its being so multifaceted. And there are many other projects like that. But the key element, all the levels of interactions are based on partnership. Another important thing, here's what we come to understand in our evolution, a necessary element to be discussed in any kind of partnership which is created. When we talk about today's focus, how we develop and manage IP in its elements. So if you work with a university, with a lab, or with a company who are here, so the basic model is so the client is the IP holder, and so the developer transfers IP rights to the client. So we have a large stack of IP. So being a large subsoil user, we want to use them, but in reality there's this valley of death, because you don't know how to implement them in your business processes. So we relaunched that process, and so IP becomes a key element. So we discuss what shall be created, how it should be streamlined, supported, what model should be used to protect intellectual property, etc. And after that, we start working together. So that's the stage of our learning curve when we create any kind of partnerships, and it's a key factor for us. A month ago, we discussed this with the Minister of Education for about 20 minutes. What needs to be done to accelerate this process in our ecosystem? So following this model, partner to partner or co-owner and co-owner, when we create common elements, common items for commercialization in the company and outside. So without focusing on our system, if we talk about our internal tools, we developed the process of managing technologies. This process covers or meets not only international benchmarks, and we actually did a lot to study best practices in management of innovative development, and also are the tools that we develop. Our processes are 60% automated, end-to-end, from challenges to final solutions that may come from our tech partners. And so our mechanisms are in place, and we have learned to work with venture funds, with our partners, with the state, which is a necessary element, and we actively work with them. But what was missing, it was this accelerator. And with it being part of the ecosystem and where we can place an order, we know what our specific challenges are. We have a program, we know what it will look like. We will be running by stage by stage. About 70 challenges will be placed there. 5 to 10 winners will be included in our Gazprom ecosystem, and they'll get financial support, and orders will be placed, both commercial and pilot ones. So that's what the situation looks like in terms of where we are today. That's the step we're making to enter this ecosystem with Skoltech. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them in this discussion. Thank you, Alexei. In fact, Gazprom Neft has been one of the leaders in innovations for quite a while, so I'm happy to see that you moved to this idea of open innovations. Hopefully this will continue. I would like to learn about other companies, what they think about it. And I guess I will turn to Vyacheslav Synyugin of Zarubezhneft, another major Russian oil and gas company. Vyacheslav, so when we talk about innovative development, what are your challenges on that front, and what kind of tools do you use to deal with those challenges? Thank you. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I would like to thank the Skolkovo Foundation for the invitation and for cooperation. That since 2017 we have run 6 joint projects with Skoltech mostly, and we are focusing on key players in that area. We recently structured a project with the Kazan State University. We received a federal grant to do it. So technological development is very important. If we talk about innovations and how they're used, of course, for us it's a tool to implement our corporate strategy. So innovations help achieve our objectives at the strategic level in the company. One of the key criterion is financial effectiveness for each project. So which areas we have in consideration? The first one, improving efficiency of existing assets, carbonate collectors and working with them. Second one, expanding resource base, how innovations can help us in that area. And the third one, improving efficiency of production processes. It's a foundational thing. And also auxiliary service processes, because they're also quite important for the company. Also, we look at innovative technologies in the context of energy transition, because we understand that energy transition is inevitable, and we should respond to that challenge in the best way possible. So we look at innovative technologies, so related to our core business, related to renewables, and also green technologies, because it's also part of this large agenda of digitalization, which is implemented globally around the world. Besides that, we look at new tools of structuring cooperation with Skolkovo. Today, our leadership had pitch session with startups that offered their projects, and we agreed on some joint steps going forward. We will continue working on this as before. And last year, Zarubezhneft was awarded the first place among state-owned companies for innovative development. So that was a very important recognition for us, and we would like to continue. Thank you, Vyacheslav Yurovich, for that. It is a very important topic. Thanks. An important topic was brought up when, in my introduction, I mentioned new technologies for the oil and gas. I talked about conventional business for oil and gas, but this energy transition that is happening also generates need for new technologies. And we should not forget about this and pay attention to it. In many international companies, and they prioritize those technologies. Speaking of international companies, it would be interesting to hear perspective from Shell regarding what is your focus in terms of technologies, conventional technologies versus energy transition technologies, and also what technological tools are used to find new technological solutions, innovations, what is done in-house and what is done through open innovation. So I'd like to give the floor to Niels Dijksman from Shell.
Thank you. I probably need 5 hours to cover to cover your question.
Please try to be brief.
I will. First of all, let me say thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. And you might wonder, what is a representative of a 131-year-old company doing at an innovation event? Well, let me tell you, through those 131 days, we have had to innovate and change our company every single day, every single week, every single year of our existence. Otherwise, we would not have survived, the 131 years that we have. And I think that's a cry to all of you in this room who are sitting here and starting, the journey with your ideas. I hope that in 131 years, people will have taken your idea and will have grown it into, a major Russian or international company. So going back to Oleg's question, let me maybe share a little bit of what we do with Shell. So on a year-on-year basis, Shell spends about $1 billion on research and development. We have 3 major research centers where we focus about 4,000 people across the globe. The major research center for Shell is the technology center in Amsterdam. We have a smaller center in Bangalore. A lot of the digital work actually is done in Bangalore. And we also have a research and technology center in Houston. This is where the core oil field technologies are being worked. Very much along the lines as Alexei was sharing, it really depends on where the business partners sit, where we focus the different technologies, and of course also any startups that go with that. I would also like to stress a point made by Alexei is the importance of institutes like Skolkovo, but also the importance of universities in this game, where you really need to partner up with those kind of institutes in order to make sure that you drive through innovation, you drive through technology, and you're not on your own. I think the word partnership was used a few times, if I got it translated well. In this day and age, it's all about partnership. If you think that you can do something on your own, you're probably going to, you're not going to be very successful, I think. And that also very much goes for partnership with local and regional governments. Yeah, and that's why we don't concentrate on one place, but we do it across the globe. What do we do and how do we do it? So what is it, what kind of methods do we have? I think back to Oleg's question, what type of methods do we have to drive innovation? Let me start at the bottom of this view graph. We have an initiative called Shell TechWorks. And with Shell TechWorks, I wouldn't say employ, because that's not what they would like us to use, but we partner with extremely talented people. And we give them a problem, and we just give them a problem, and we ask them to find us a solution. And these are people that don't come from the oil and gas business. They come from all kinds of walks of life, and they are, extremely smart and intelligent folks. And we give them a very short period of time in which they can drive a solution. And then we check in with them and see if it works. The second tier is these research alliances. And this is where alliances with the Skolkovos of this world, but also universities, other R&D centers, our partners' R&D centers, our business partners' R&D centers. That's where that specific approach to developing and deploying technology comes in. The third one is what we call Shell Game Changer, and this is an internal group of people that we have in Shell that are focused on the problems that we have in our business. Yeah? And our business is changing. So back to your question, where do we invest our money? I would say at present, still the lion's share of our investments is R&D in E&P and petroleum type of technologies. That's where Shell earns currently most of its revenue. But over the past 10 years, I've seen a major transition to investments in greener technology and the technologies of the future. And that's where we're, in the next 5 years, are going to make a major shift of where do we spend our R&D money? Is it in the conventional oil and gas, or is it really in the transition type of technologies? And this is where we use Game Changer for. The last program that we have is called Shell Ventures. It used to be called Shell Technology Ventures. And this is where we invest in companies, and invest in companies that work or have a technology that we need in our business, either for a very specific need or for a wider global need and global replication. So that would be the approach that we currently take when it comes to developing and deploying technology. Maybe just one more small thing that highlights how a company like Shell is continuously innovating and starting up. Yeah, and starting up is very hard. It's very difficult. It requires a lot of patience, and it requires a lot of confidence. Already 15 years ago, Shell piloted hydrogen as the first major oil and gas company to pilot hydrogen. We had a very small market in which we pilot hydrogen, and between you and me, and don't tell this to anybody else, but 15 years ago, the world was not yet ready for hydrogen. So the project was trialed, and it was not a commercial success at that point in time. We never really stopped, but we also didn't make the next step. Now we're in a different world. Now suddenly hydrogen is very much something that is on the minds of many oil and gas companies and many energy companies. And therefore, we are now in a much better place. Again, starting up and innovating, we're in a much better place as a company to drive the hydrogen agenda in the areas that we operate, which very much includes, hopefully, the Russian Federation in years to come. I hope, Oleg, with that, I've been able to answer some of your questions.
Да, спасибо. Но единственное, может быть, я...
Yes, thank you, but to build up, I would like to ask another question. So you spoke about this trend which can actually cover Russia, and it is actually also touching upon Russia as well. Many Russian companies start to work with hydrogen, at least they are announcing that they are doing this. And if we take a look at the reverse picture, maybe it's a provocative question. So, is Shell actually ready, or maybe you are working with Russian developers of the technologies? Is there such an experience, and are there some obstacles on this way? I'm not talking about hydrogen only, of course.
Yeah, I don't mind speaking about hydrogen. We are exploring what we can do with Russia technology companies. Of course, when you talk about grey hydrogen, there is quite a lot of information and technology available. And one of the things we're looking into as Shell is that an area for possible partnership in the future. And of course, that will be driven specifically by what is the kind of hydrogen that, as Shell, we want to promote. You've got grey, you've got blue, and you've got green hydrogen. I don't want to make it very difficult for you all, but there are 3 types of hydrogen, and I think it will very much depend on, and maybe even more, but at least I know about 3. It will very much depend on, does Shell want to concentrate on all 3? Or do we want to concentrate, let's say, more on the blue and on the green? And I'm not the decision maker when it comes to that, but we really look at Russia as an area, for further deepening and long-term partnerships, not just in hydrogen, but also in conventional oil and gas technologies. Yeah? But it needs to be, for Shell, it needs to be part of a business case. Yeah? So we cannot invest in something which is nice. It has to have a clear bearing on our portfolio. Yeah.
спасибо за такой развернутый ответ. Но я думаю, действительно, про цвета водорода отдельно говорить не будем.
Yes, thank you very much for this answer. Yes, definitely there are more types of hydrogen. Sometimes they mention more of those. But anyhow, one of the tools of working with startups. So Niels spoke about Shell Ventures here, about investments. When we're talking about buying the shares in the startups. And we have a representative of the venture fund Terra VC. There are few private venture funds in Russia which are investing into IT technologies. Usually, of course, the terms of implementations of IT technologies is shorter, and the projects are shorter and faster. But also, few companies are investing into bigger projects, for example, in oil and gas. And over here, I would like to ask Piotr. Could you please tell me? Well, I have two questions here. Well, well, we can be on friendly terms here, yes. Okay, so, well, sometimes we get too formal, I know that. Okay, anyhow. Are there some criteria in which you are using in the foundation to select a company you invest in? That's the first question. And second question, considering the fact that the venture fund considers the growth to be a very important factor, the growth of the investments, of course. So are there any ideas how you can actually accelerate the introduction of such companies, new companies into oil and gas sector? Thank you very much, Oleg. And I would like to highlight that we have most innovative oil and gas companies which I personally faced. At least these companies are open to innovations. A couple of words about Terra VC, to have a context. We are investing in oil and gas, but not only oil and gas. We have 24 companies and only 7 out of those are oil and gas. However, it's a rather big number. Yes, of course, if we compare to the other foundations and funds, this is a lot. We actually have 2 hydrogen investments. We had 3, but we sold one of those. And I can say that 2020 was a rather peculiar and cool year about it, because the oil just plummeted and the money just ran away and drifted away from oil. All the reports changed their vectors. If in 2019 I read the reports of international agency and people were saying that the investments into the upstream have finally grown and the investments of the clients have dropped. And in 2020 I was reading the reports of energy agency and the reports of BP, and these people were actually predicting their own death in the nearest future. For example, BP was forecasting 15% of hydrogen in the energy and the oil. So we all understand that the peak is already there, but everybody is arguing that things are going to plummet even faster. So, and actually not much has happened. So we have been looking at the hydrogen companies. They have been in R&D stage for 4 years, and in 2020 they grew 20-fold in their price. So that's about the interest of the investors and so on. If we're talking about the capital markets, of course, it's following the environment and context. We are trying to run away from this environment, and we think about the things which can be used to build the business. And judging by our feelings, we can do it in the oil and gas industry with a better success than if we're talking about the hydrogen, because hydrogen companies are not that good. So people have been asking, what are the best companies to invest in? So, and in the hydrogen, and actually all the 3 places would be empty. So although they cost more than several billions of dollars in the market. Well, that's in short, actually. So we're looking at the companies which are generating good revenue, but they have to be demanded from the investor side. So on the investment rounds of the venture funds and from the point of view of being consumed by other companies. From the point of view of business, everything is clear. If you do something which gives you more oil with the same cost, or it reduces the cost of extracting oil, then it means that you are in the zone which is interesting to CEO of any oil company. So if you show it in one well, and people believe you, then people would like you to use it on every well. So we have more than 2 million wells in the world. So it could be a very good business if you scale up it to all the 2 million. So we like it and we invest into it. Well, investors don't actually like it. That's a disadvantage. And top managers of the oil companies understand the capabilities which are given by this business. So, and they are not investing into those things. They are not interesting, although, so whether it's internet or hydrogen, but they are not investing in oil. So they are trying to invest into different things. So this is the mood in the market. This is something which was actually quite obvious in 2020. The cars stopped moving, the planes stopped flying. So, and we can see that whole industry has plummeted. And it seems to be that we need to find the point of balance. So we need to find this balance between the cash flow, the revenue, and to find still balance between the interest of the companies. If we're talking about investments into oil and gas, I didn't want to do that. I was thinking that I will invest into Client Tech. I have a partner, Dan Colbert, in California, so we were looking at the energy from sun, the renewable energy, and in 2011 we stopped doing that, so people stopped investing into that at all. So, and right now we can see that there is a new wave. So it was hard to earn money there. So, and in oil we started seeing this pipeline. We came working with one company, so we sold it to KPR, American company, so it was from Skolkovo, this startup. We had a very strong team there, so people have very obvious and clear business case. The market is clear, so it's in Russia, you don't have to go anywhere, and if you go to States, so you have a great potential then, and you earn something in there, of course. And people started investing into it. People think that oil and gas is all about corruptions, only obstacles, only big players, and only those who know how to do this. And I was shocked when I started doing this. We managed to do it. So we had this company, Perfabur called. It came to the well, the equipment started malfunctioning. We didn't get our 3.5 million rubles, which we wanted to get from this source, and then we found out that Bashneft actually got 15 millions of rubles of their own costs. So, and I thought that Bashneft wouldn't like to work with Perfabur at all. And all of a sudden, we received 6 more wells and started working there. But Bashneft was bought by another, a more innovational company. And it became a little bit more complicated to perform such operations. But however, the fact that these companies are ready to spend their money for innovations is really awesome. I can say that 3 companies out of our portfolio which we invested in, so they started their business. So we started our commercial operations with 3 companies which can be seen here on this panel. One with Gazprom Neft, one of the whales, another one with Zarubezhneft. And the third campaign, it's more of a Houston one, so a guy from Russia actually was starting work. And the first money was received due to Shell Game Changer, so they are working with AI in the digging process. So, and I believe that this industry is open to innovations. Of course, there are problems. For example, after the pilots, we understood that we thought that we would be paid a lot, so, and the oil company believes otherwise. They say that we need to have a tender, we need to reduce the prices and not to have a margin. Or they are not giving anything at all after a good pilot. So, but anyhow, these are the business risks. We have to all understand this. So innovations are still business. So you are doing something, so you're creating a bit, so it might work and might not work, so you never know. So, and of course, this is an industry with a great investment potential and commercial potential. That is why we are planning to go on investing into it and to work with our colleagues to find new cooperations. Thank you.
Вот ты много интересного сказал.
Well, actually, you said a lot of interesting things, but I thought about one peculiar thing. First, you need to do a pilot to show to everybody else. That actually correlates very good with what has been said by Alexei about the accelerators. Because one of the tasks of the accelerators is to find the projects and to lead them to some pilot implementation, to touch them, to see whether they're working or not, in order to make some decisions after that. And I wanted to ask, so we were supposed to have another speaker, so is he here? Mustafa Al-Ali.
По-моему, нет, не вижу.
I don't see him.
So, nonetheless, our session has been very interesting, I think, and would like to thank all the speakers. We've heard perspectives from the state, from Russian companies, from international companies, and the venture fund. That was very interesting to learn about approaches to looking for innovative solutions, their implementation, how companies do that, what they do now, what they will be doing going forward. It is very important that companies start implementing such programs as this accelerator that Alexei mentioned, and we do hope that such programs will be done in cooperation with the Skolkovo Foundation. And we are confident that such events will help to accelerate implementation of new technologies in oil and gas. In Europe, we invite all the innovative companies and service companies that can be a bridge still, and to establish those links to cooperate. We've seen some successful examples with Russian companies and international companies, some projects that were initiated here at Skolkovo. So we'll be moving forward together, and we'll make the energy sector and oil and gas specifically more innovative, more competitive at the global level. Thank you all.
Жажда веселья. Жажда путешествий. Жажда общения. Утоляй любую жажду с освежающими вкусами Липтон. Мой любимый персик.
При низких температурах окружающей среды тела быстро теряют энергию. Но нахождение вблизи источника тепла позволяет телу получать тепловое излучение. Происходит самопроизвольное перераспределение тепла. Следовательно, когда источники тепла находятся вместе, их энергия побеждает холод. Лучшее создается вместе. Газпромбанк.
МТС Стартап Хаб. Работа с реальным бизнес-заказчиком МТС. Доступ к ресурсам самого крупного телеком-бренда в России. Не можешь поверить? А в твой стартап обязательно поверят. У нас есть все, что тебе понадобится. Ресурсы, клиенты, технологии, каналы продаж. Мы оценим твой продукт, правильно применим в своем бизнесе и масштабируем на мировой рынок. МТС Стартап Хаб ждет тебя и твоих нереальных бизнес-идей.